Hello, we'd like to say welcome. This is a special edition of the Gracious Hope live podcast on KMTV. KMTV, we are everywhere, and we are here today to celebrate with you this weekend. It is Liberia's Independence Day weekend. The day is July 26th, which falls on Monday, but we do celebrate the whole weekend, even all of the Liberian communities in the United States. Some are celebrating this weekend, and our heartfelt congratulatory treat goes out to you. And we'd like to say welcome. This is the Gracious Hope live broadcast. My name is Alexander Red, your host. And I also have here, as always, our co-host, Reverend Suarez Dede. And we'd like to say welcome and happy Independence Day to all Liberians in the homeland and out of the homeland, Reverend Dede.
My 26 on you, brother. My 26 on you. You're not going to escape this one because I said it first. Well, we are glad to be back. This is the day the Lord has made, and let us rejoice and be glad in it. We are 174 years old as a country, a nation state. Where have we been? What has happened? What have we achieved? And where we tend to go? We just try to just revisit history a little bit as much as we can, because most of you already know the history of Liberia, of your beloved nation. So that's what we intend to do today, Alex and myself. Don't grade us because we might not give you everything you want. We just give you what we need to discuss today.
Yes, and we want you to participate, okay? Make all your comments about your country, Liberia, anything you want to say. But remember, this is Independence Day celebration, and we'll be looking at the topic, lessons of Independence Day of our country, 174th year on Monday, July 26th. It is one of the oldest African independent countries, and it is incumbent upon every one of us to put a negative aside. When I mean name calling is not what we are here for, but we are here to celebrate our country in every way. We've been through tough times, and July 26th is our Independence Day. So it is a unique time for all Liberians living in the homeland and out of the homeland to reflect on the country's history. And I know this reflection is somehow painful in many ways, because if you look back when the country was founded in 1847, Liberia gained its independence with American Liberians taking charge. Those were descendants of slaves. They took charge of the country, and thereafter we witnessed coups, or may I say coup d'etat, war, poverty, disease, destruction of property, deaths, and also shaky leadership, and all the rest. But these are all moral history of our country. Leaders come and go based on charges of mismanagement. And the words that people always say is this. These are the words. The words they always say are widespread or rampant corruption. But again, we all make mistakes, and we all want to reconcile and have a country that is unified. Now, how do we bring about unity? We must learn our lessons of the past. And so please join us by giving your comments. What are some of the things that we can do to overcome the current impasse over reconciliation and unity in our country? We have a new leader in our country, and we look forward to seeing another election coming up. And laying aside the politics, who we are as a people makes a lot of sense to us. Because why? National identity and patriotism, these are the two that should be on our lips right now. Two words or terms that should be on our lips to bring our country back together. And I know in politics, we see a lot of division going on in the three branches, and both the opposition party members, as well as those that are already in power or the authority. But this is all the talk of war, and it goes back to one thing. It goes back the inward talk of war, because anything that is manifested outwardly comes from within. And so we'll be looking at lessons of our Independence Day of our country, and Reverend Swadede and I will be looking at that. And so we'd like to say welcome. Please share this link with your friends, because there's a whole lot we have on our plate here. I'm just looking for my graphics here to say share. But you can share this. We want to enjoy this day, because it's a day that we all should be what? Be celebrating our country and accepting our wrong and repenting and forgiving one another, as well as making sure that we have a very good country, and be proud of our country, and see how we all can marry together and have a very unified country. And so then, what are some of the things we can look at in history or in antiquity? Reverend Swat Dede will have some history lessons first here for each and every one of us. And so please join us. Reverend Dede.
Praise God, to God be the glory again, brother. And it's always good to know where you've come from, to know where you are and where you are going. And the whole genesis of our country started with the decision or the desire to resettle free slaves who were in fact taken from Africa, sold to America, and there was a need to bring them back home. So that's why we want to go back to that period a little bit, so that we appreciate how the whole thing started. So during the 1810s and 1820s, resettlement attempts of African Americans back to Africa took place, most of which were largely unsuccessful. One of the notable attempts was Liberia, where around 6,000 free slaves were brought to form a colony and escape the racial persecution in North America. Two organizations were responsible for this resettlement attempt: the American Society for the Colonization of the Free People of Color, ASCPC, ASCPC of the United States and the American Colonization Society of the USA. The primary document examined is a report from a lieutenant who was in the American Navy who kind of helped to land the free slaves on Cherbourg and then to Providence Island. So since that time, the American Colonization Society sent free slaves to Liberia to find a place to resettle those slaves who were set free by the abolition of slavery. Abraham Lincoln, as you know, those of you who know the history, Abraham Lincoln fought very hard to free slaves, whether African American as well. And then those people had to be resettled, find a place for them. And that's how the whole picture came for Liberia to be one of those places. But it was not an easy task. When the first group came, our people here on the land, because there was a land first here, but it was not called Liberia, as we all know that. So when the free slaves came, they tried to find settlement here, and the natives refused because they protected their land. They want to make sure nobody took their land from them. So in the face of that, there was a little back and forth and a struggle. But this Lieutenant Stockton, have you heard of Stockton Creek? Yes, in Liberia, Stockton Creek. Lieutenant Stockton was the one who led the American Navy at that time, and he bargained with one of the African chiefs, one of the African people, and they sold a piece of land to the settlers. And how they settled somewhere around Cherbourg, coming to Providence Island, keep most around the area there. And then the whole thing began. And so let's fast forward to 1822, 1847. And then came 1847 when Liberia declared independence, because France and America were kind of going back on, not France and Britain want to have a portion of Liberia. And America, who has sent the ACS to Africa, to Liberia, did not want that. But there was still some political games going on. So Britain and France needed some little land in Liberia, and America was not offered that. But the short of the long is, Lieutenant Stockton, after making his deed with the African, our own indigenous king or chief, to purchase a land, more free slaves started to come to Africa, to Liberia, and the whole process began. So then in 1847, Liberia declared her independence. But interestingly, America that supported the whole process of resettlement did not recognize Liberia until 1862, for 1847. So all those years, what happened? America, George Washington had his own political thinking. Should I recognize Liberia now? What will happen? But in the long run, we recognize Liberia. So this is what we are. We have a very unique history. Okay, this is just the short of the long. We have a very unique history. So from where we've come and where we are and where we intend to go, the question is, what have we achieved? What have been our failures as a nation state? And what we think we can do to move ahead? And this is why Ellis and myself going to be going back and forth today, just to give you our take on it, and then get your views and opinions and suggestions as you participate today.
Yes, it's quite a history of our country. In fact, if we go back to the constitution of our country, the founding fathers, or the commission that gathered together to write a constitution, I'm talking about the revised one in 1986, recognized God, his grace and his providence on our country. So there are some debate here and there where people say, well, you cannot say Liberia is merely a Christian country because you have a variety of other religious groups. However, when we're talking about in the majority, in number, in strength, and when it comes to occupying positions in the politics and other areas, yes, predominantly we can claim that, yes, the Christians are in higher number, and the norm, I say the culture or customary practice, besides the traditional practice, because we have a lot of tribal groups in various counties. However, the main practice when it comes to religion is Christianity and the Islamic faith, as well as we have others like the Baha'i that came later on. And so our country has a very unique history. However, the thing is that if we look at Liberia, we cannot divorce our country history from all of the tragedies that have been going on, from um, the presidential leadership to, and I vividly remember uh, William Aratobo's leadership. He was a Baptist minister, and he came in after William V.S. Tubman passed away. He was the vice president. He came in constitutionally as the president of that country. But there was some other movements going on at the time, Moja and all the other democratic leaning multi-democracy parties going on. They protest. They wanted for the system to open from the True We Party to have a multi-party democracy, which of course birthed in the what would I say? The whole idea about what it means to practice human rights, what it means to allow people to speak freely. But again, our history from 1980, the rice riot, and then those that died during the riot, and then President Tobo's death or assassination, to um, the ascension to power of the PRC from Samuel Doe. I mean, we just have a whole lot of unique history. And for 1980, that's what I remember because when the PRC came into power, I was still young at the time. And I still remember these men, they used to wear like dark glasses. I mean, I'm just reflecting on my memory here. And yeah, they took over, and Simon Doe was the master sergeant at the time. And then later on, there was election, and then that election where he won that election, he claimed victory, and there were some people in the opposition parties who criticized that election that he didn't win the election. And then after that, then the war came with Charles Taylor and Prince Johnson. And of course, Samuel Doe was assassinated. He was arrested and murdered by Prince Johnson and his forces. And so if you look at our painful moment from the past and now celebrating Liberia on this weekend or during this weekend, it's somehow full of pain. And it's just hard to fathom if we look at all our leaders who have been going through mismanagement accusations, as well as the need to have a very strong leader, a leader who is very servant-hearted, and a leader with integrity, a leader who puts the people first. And so Liberians are still yearning, to still find that leader. And of course, the civil war that came from Taylor, then transition into interim governments. Then came the national election with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf becoming the president, the first female president. She won, I believe it was 5 million or 3 million or 3 to 5 million for the Mo Ibrahim Leadership Award, for the Best Leadership African Award. And she led the country for 2 terms. And after her leadership, there was an election that came with George Weah running with the coalition party CDC, and he became victorious for the first time. A footballer, someone who knows football. He got rich from playing football or soccer, may I say, internationally known, and he became the president. And so now his leadership is going on, but the country is still reeling from all of the what would I say, the remnants of corruption and the civil war, rebuilding, reconstructing. And the most important thing is the unity of the people, reconciliation and unity. And now Weah is in power, and people are now calling for war crime court, which of course the Senate somehow turned that down by voting unanimously to not do so. But again, where are we? That's the question. What are some of the lessons are we to learn so that we can forge ahead as a country and people? And this is where the question is. So I encourage each and every one of you who are watching right now to give us your opinion and let us know what you think. I have a caller, another caller, but someone here who says, I love you, Mama Liberia, even though Liberia is misspelled over there, but that's fine. and and so you can chime in by letting us know what you think, looking at our country's history. What are some of the things that we can do or learn from our past in order to move forward, not looking backward? And so this is where we are, Reverend Dede.
Indeed, interesting. I'm glad how you just gave some tidbits about our historicity. You will notice that since 1847, Liberia operated as an independent state with a constitutional system model on that of America. I mean, the United States of America. For a long portion of our history, the government was dominated by American Liberians, those free slaves that came from America, which they were all Liberians. As I would see that, I have no problem with that. But the government was then dominated by free slaves from America, American Liberians, and these people played a part to bring the country as best as they could to the level where they wanted it to be model on that of the United States of America. But then it came 1980, like you mentioned, 1980 came. Before that was a restaurant in 1979. And interestingly, Alex, I was on, what would I say, Carey Street around AGM school there when our restaurant started, and I almost died. It's interesting that you mentioned it, and it just brings me back to that memory. I almost died. Shooting and looting erupted in Monrovia. And I recall Vanny Dempsey, the police director then, he sent police to the executive mansion where the rioters were, where the demonstrators were going. So history is interesting because history helps you to see where you're from and where you are and what you're going. So then came 1980. The army led by Samuel Doe, Master Sergeant, then felt that there was rampant corruption, like you mentioned from the onset, rampant corruption, and they wanted to change the political landscape. So he and 17 members of the armed forces of Liberia overthrew Toba government. All right. And after that, they had the People's Redemption Council government. And interestingly, that council government was both the executive and the legislative aspect of the government. They run the country, they make laws, and the rest of that. The 17 men were increased to 28 men. And the revolution is its own babies. And most of those men who came with disappeared from the scene. So in other words, history is unique in a sense where once you see it and appreciate it, it guides your future, it guides your understanding, and it dictates to what you want to go so that you don't repeat those things that happened in the past. And this is why we are reflecting on our history today. William Tubber replaced William V.S. Tubman, as you know, when he died in 1971 after waiting for some 47 years. I hope I get the numbers right. He was more like a demigod. People respected him the rest of that. William Tubman came and he was overthrown. Now, Doe was also overthrown, like you mentioned, and then Charles Taylor came. So the painful history also has its good part. When I was growing up in Liberia, yes, it was it had its own tough economic time at time, but we enjoy our country then. You and I, we grew up in Monrovia at the time. We enjoy. And what's happening to the children today? Are they enjoying as we did in yesteryears? That's the question. Is the economic system okay? The health system, the health sector okay? Those are things that we intend to just visit today.
Yes. And if you're just joining us, this is the Gracious Hopes live podcast on KMTV. KMTV, we are everywhere. And we are here every weekend to bring you this podcast. And then today, this weekend, it is all about Liberia. We are celebrating, and we just want to thank God that as we look at our history and people, what are we to do individually to bring about peace and unity and development in this country, because our country has gone through a whole lot and the whole issue of corruption. So then the question is, can you stop corruption? And sometimes we think about corruption as money stolen or money taken from government coffers, money that is illegally taken, not for you, but for the people. But again, corruption, we know it starts from the human heart. And if you look For Christian, if we look at God's word from our perspective, corruption starts from the heart. If the heart is not directed toward God and consumed with the true love of God, then the outward manifestation of your attitude or your conduct can also fall away or falter. And so the whole thing about changing leadership, leaders come and go, um, it has been a very big issue or problem in our country. You know, people criticize, but there are other leaders who have the good side and bad side. But this is where we are as Liberians right now. So then we'd like to hear from you. Where are we to go from here? What can you do to develop your country? What can you do in your own power or in your own strength and ability, allowing God to work through you to make your country a better place? We will be right back. All right, so we are back here. And like I said, we'd like to hear from you if you can make your comments here to know how we can move our country forward with all the painful history that we've had. We all have shared history, both on the individual level, family level, as well as areas in our communities and the society at large. So then, if you were to ask yourself, what responsibility do I have to be a good citizen and to make my country a better country? You could be a college student or primary student or high school student. Um, Give us your view, how you think and what we can do. And if we look at our country today, looking at this weekend, celebrating or getting in the mood to celebrate, and some places are celebrating right now, especially in the diaspora. But the 26th is on Monday. Liberians now have the whole understanding idea that yes, celebrating my country, Independence Day, is a day for fun, for a lot of festivities. However, with the joy that comes with it, what are we doing to move our country forward? And we tend to look just to government to always fix things, but we know that government is is the same as a leadership or the authority leading people. However, we ourselves, we are endowed with certain gifts or talents or skills that we can use to develop our own country or develop our community, maybe in our family. And with the Civil War that came, families were divided or shattered in many ways. So that Liberian tradition of family life was shattered. And when you see young men and young women or girls, young boys and young girls growing up all by themselves, which of course spill into society to have a lot of increase in crime. And when the young people have nothing to do, because I was watching a video just recently, and these boys were sitting at the cemetery, talking to a reporter, stating that they had nothing to do. I mean, they said we sit all day, we had nothing to do. We smoke pot all day, we drink, and we steal from people, hijack people, and take things from them because no job. But they turn around and blame it on the government. So then again, when a reporter asks them, "Where are your parents?" Majority of them said, "Our parents are dead. They died in the war. We grew up ourselves." And the other guy said, "I didn't even know where my parents, went during the war, and so I grew up literally by myself." So then we see the Zocos, as Liberians will call them, the Zogos, those boys or those um, cast out, may I say, in society, sleeping in the streets and sleeping in the cemetery. And so this is very chaotic and a problem, not just for government, but for the community level as well. And so these are things that we see and we experience. But then, how can we help? What can we do as Liberians? Because it is the only country that we have, right, Reverend Dede?
That's true. That's true. And I'm listening to you and asking myself the question, how did we come to this? There have always been, in the Liberian parlance, Bruna. Bruna means children who spend most time on the street, don't want to go home, or maybe they have no home to go to, so we call them Bruna. Maybe it's the same as the Zogos. I got to be careful with the destination right there. But how did we come to this? What did our parents? Where did our parents go wrong? Where did the government go wrong? What happened? We all have a role to play, at least. We cannot put all the blame on government. This issue didn't just start yesterday on the current president. It existed during before him, before him, and before him. So what is happening? Now, the government has its role to play. The government is the biggest employer of the citizenry. That is an established fact. But companies come and companies go. But I've heard some stories which may be true or false, where government leaders will demand gratuity or brown envelope before the sign certain contracts. How true is that? I wasn't there. I don't know, but that's what I heard. It's only happening now. It happened before and before and before. Even when the PRC government came, that situation still happened. The problem is we are our own problem. We are our own problem. Why? Because we foster certain errors and vices in society by our non-action or by our action. And what do I mean by that? If we know that we have certain government leaders who are behaving in a certain way, these government leaders go to church. I think some of our guests on this show on this program have said that they go to church. They have the pastors. If the pastors cannot speak or change and non-corruption attitude into them by Bible study or by talking to them for the word of God, the issue will continue. But on the flip side, if the pastors themselves don't want to measure anything because they want these government officials to give them money, then we have a bigger issue. So all of us are both together. We cannot keep shaping blame on the government alone. I'm not defending government here today. The government have their own faults and their own situation. They are human beings in government. They need people to talk to them. There are certain people who have the ears of government officials, at least. We know that. So if these people are also credible people who are above the frail and above reproach, and they try to put sense into these leaders, I'm sure something will happen. But everybody is looking on one side, and the government. I was talking with, let me say this, then I can ask you to come in. I work on the country name. He's from my country. He tells me every now and then, the nationals of this country come to the United States, make money, work hard, and go back home and build, develop the country. Liberians are doing that as well. That is the best way to develop your country. Liberians are doing that, and I must commend Liberians who are doing that. That is the best way to go. But when these people go home to build, then the government officials demand certain things for them before they clear from the free port or the airport. And that is going to be discouraging. So we all got to say where we go wrong as a citizenry and where the government stands wrong, when the government is out, and then also recognize where you are, where you go wrong. The churches, the schools, all of us have our part to play, where we come from, and where we are, and where we need to go.
Yes, and that is so true because as a country, one of the oldest African countries, look around us. You see, look around us. Sierra Leone went through war. I know they are picking up gradually, but look at Ghana. And I hear people talk about other countries like Ghana, Nigeria, countries that got their independence later on, or somehow doing well when it comes to, even though every country has its own problems based on the dynamics of culture and leadership and other things that you can factor in. And this is not to say we want to blame government in any way, because government is not always reachable to everybody. Okay, but God can reach out to everybody, and it goes back to a heart attitude. And I believe that the heart attitude is more important, because if we have leaders, not just in politics, but leaders in our churches, leaders in our homes, husbands, or when I say foster parents, leaders in organizations like para organizations like NGOs and other societal or human rights groups, if they can uh, show what we call integrity. And God defines integrity from the word, the way the word defines integrity, because there's a big difference. But it goes back to our heart. Do I really, 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 really want to engage in some acts or many acts that will undermine the progress of my leadership and those who should benefit from it? I mean, these are questions I believe that each leader should be asking themselves if our country is to move forward. And I'm taking this not just from political leadership, but I'm talking about leadership in everywhere in the society. And
Right.
that's where that's what it boils down to. Do we have a servant heart to serve the people? Are we humble enough to serve the people? Are we putting the interest of the people? But from what we see so far, we see the definition of politics fitting its definition. That is, who gets what? We hear about scanners when it comes to money. We hear about a lot of other things. But we are not going to get into that because this weekend is a celebration of our Independence Day, 174th. However, lessons that we should learn from our past with all the chaos when it comes to war, coup, assassination, war, and destruction of property, uh, what I say, deaths, and you can just have a whole myriad of problems. We can look back and say, okay, we need to move ahead. But we got certain people, it could be from the media, journalists, it could be from political pundits. They are so stuck in the past and they always bring on the past. They always bring on the past. It's not a bad thing to talk about the past, but if we are emotionally stuck in the past and not just use the past for lesson that we learn, but what can we do now and the future, our country will not progress or will not move forward when it comes to the increase in employment, inviting foreign investors to our country, strengthening our justice system, which is fragile in a sense, and making people to feel secure, less or lower crime rate. All of these things are all important to have an enabling environment for every one of us to prosper in every way. Reverend Dede?
I can't agree with you more. I mean, you nail the nail on the head. And I just want to go back to the home. You mentioned the home. Society begins with the home. Seriously, from the home. The upbringing from the home spreads in the
Mm,
society, and then the church comes in. The home prepares the children go out in the society, the church takes care of the children and impact spiritual teaching to them, biblical teaching to them, so that they don't depart from that. So the home and the church, there should be that symbiotic relationship between them, where as the home grows, the church spiritually impacts, and society also gets involved by providing them the wherewithal, the means and the needs that the society will need to provide jobs for people, to make earnest living so that they will avoid corruption and behaviors that will take from society rather giving the society. One lesson has we learned so far, Brother Ellison states, we noticed that in our society, people want to get, grab, and go. I call it triple G syndrome. Get, grab, and go. And if you want to get, grab, and go, you're gonna engage in the crab mentality. And the crab mentality is where the crabs are in the bucket. One crab wants to come up, all the other crabs are pull that crab down. And that's what has been happening in society to a large extent. In that situation, you don't have society growing in the sense where people are being empowered. Take for instance, Alex, during the war, who destroyed these things? Our own quote unquote freedom fighters took gun and shoot at the transformers. Shoot at the transformers that you need for electricity. And then after everything, you want to blame government for that. Okay, government has this role to play to repair those things, but we destroyed them. We gotta be honest with ourselves. We destroyed those things under the guise of being freedom fighters. Freedom fighters, we destroyed. We wreck everything, and then we come back later on and start to put blame on this one government not doing
mhm,
that. government doing this. Again, Ellis and I, we're not here to defend government. We're just being honest and frank with ourselves. Unless we see what we are, face our situations as they are, we have a long ways to go. And you know what? We should hold ourselves responsible, and including me and Ellis and all Liberians, where we were silent when issues did not go well, or where we spoke but not in a balanced, amicable way, and what we say kind of destroy and put things into disarray. We cannot keep behaving like this in our country. And Ellis mentioned that it's a heart issue. If your heart is not in a place of love, you cannot exhibit love. That's just the reality. So this is what we are, people, Liberians, as we celebrate 174 years of nation state, nationhood. What can we show to the world that we have? Of course, we have some good things. We have some educated people in our country. Liberia has produced some sound educators and diplomats. Of course, we have these people. Scientists we have. I don't want to call name and leave a name because I gotta be careful with that. We have medical scientists as well who are working in the field of science. We have them. So we have to put our hands around these people. Don't destroy them, because destroy me. You say things about people that you have no proof whatsoever against these people, but you say it anyhow. That's how we destroy each other. So it is time now. And it's I'm making this clear record. It is time we reflect on ourselves, see ourselves where we are. They allow Second Chronicles 7:14 to come into place. Ask God to help us take out of this dungeon where we want to take ourselves, and give us where we're supposed to be as a nation state, so that we all can benefit from the resources we have in our country.
Exactly. And I got a writing here from someone that's kind of long. Said, this is very interesting discussion. I'm kind of panning a little bit because my camera is in front of me. Discussion on Liberia Independence Day, gentlemen. It is very, very necessary to brainstorm on current issues, I believe, current situations, and the future prosperity of our native land, Liberia. I have my personal tale of stories on Liberia. And then he goes on to say a whole lot here. Let me see. A personal story to tell. He says, Honorable Swat Dede and I are a product of the same high school, the Morovia Central High School. I graduated from that school in the 80s. So, by the way, I have a book coming up soon on Liberia's funding, the various crisis situation we went through from 1979, rights crisis, to the 1980, April 12, 1980 coup d'etat, the Dole regime, to the rebel invasion by Charles Taylor and other warring factions. Then came President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and now President George. We are very interested discussion, guys. And this is from Eddie Stewart. So we look forward to seeing that book. And once we get a copy, we'll be happy to you know, bring it the program to talk about it. Yes, to talk about it. Yeah. But I mean, we're using this weekend to celebrate. Okay, we just lay out, you know, some of the problems that we have. We know we have more, and like I said, we're not getting into politics here. But again, we cannot divorce politics from the problems that we have in Liberia. But so if you're just joining us, this is the Gracious Hope live broadcast. Reverend Swat and I, we are just reflecting on our country's history, the lessons that some of us learned, our personal experiences, as well as seeing a way forward. What you see forward, what you can say, what is your story, and how can you help even the leadership to move this country forward? Any suggestions? Because it is easy to criticize and point finger. It's very easy to do that, but that's what we've all been hearing. But then what can we do in our individual capacity to help? Because if you see our country, or if your house is on fire, what do? Will you look for gas and put gas on it more, or fuel? No, you look for water, okay, to quench that fire. And so this is where we are right now. We have a history that is replete with everything that we just talked about. But then how do we move the country forward? And it takes the responsibility of each and every Liberian. And that is why India's liberator, Mahatma Gandhi, he said this. He said, change starts with you. You should be the change. And so if we depend on say, well, government will bring change and we depend on government, this is why President Weah said, he said that I pray that God, he said, I pray that God will bring about what? Unity, peace, and stability to our country. So from president to president, we've been hearing them invoke the name of God because they know that the strength is not in themselves, but depending on God. And that is where we need to go. We need to turn back to where the foundation of the country started. In the preamble of the Constitution, it says, the gracious providence of God allow this republic to stand. And it is the same God that will help us to survive as a nation state. It is in the preamble of the Constitution. So then why don't we all go back and go to the God who says, love me with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and your strength, and love your neighbor, love other people. And so if you look at all the conflict we've been going on in our country, one thing stands out, the lack of love for one another.
Indeed.
That is a
Indeed.
big problem right there. Because if I love my brother or sister, I will not harm that brother or sister. The lack of love is draining our country, is drowning our country, our mentality that we have that, well, if this person is in leadership, I don't care what kind of background you had, I won't respect that leadership. But again, if you're a true Christian, look at Romans chapter 13. I don't know if you got your Bible there, Reverend Dede, but I got mine here, and I can see it right now. And this is where the rebellious attitude is when it comes to leadership. We understand our leaders, they are humans like us, but this is what all Christians should look at, okay? How to be a very good citizen in your country and to help your country progress. Romans chapter 13 says, let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are appointed by God. Now, some of you will read those two verses and say, what, really? So those people who are in power, those who are leaders in every structure of society, even the government as a whole, from the three branches, the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judiciary branch. Yes, it is God who appointed them, and they put them there for a reason, to stop the chaos, to have order society. God is a God of order and not a God of confusion. And that is why he initiates governing authorities. But here it says, let every soul, I mean everybody, be subject to the governing authority. But there's no authority except from God. And the authorities that exist are appointed by who? Appointed by God. So in other words, God ordained all of those leaders that have been, whether they were a bad leader to you, depending on your political perspective. But again, it is not about politics. It is about what should I do in order for my country to be better? How can I help this leadership for the country to be better? And not necessarily that the political system can fix a country. There are other things that we can do in our communities that can do that. But look at here. Here's a conclusion in verse 2 of Romans chapter 13. Therefore, whoever resists the authority resists the ordinance of God, and those who resist will bring judgment on themselves. So people get penalized because they tend to provoke unnecessary chaos of a governing authority. But again, the question is, if I'm a Christian, what should be my mindset or attitude? The scripture says that every authority is appointed or ordained by God. And look at, here's the most interesting thing. Look at verse 3. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. So they are put there to what? To prevent evil, to protect you. And in our Constitution, there's a clause there that says government should protect who? To protect you, your civil liberties, your rights to exist. Of course, we see governments that violate that all the time, and they subjugate certain group of people. But you see, again, as a Christians, do they trample upon your religious liberties and freedom? And that's where, if you see the government saying you cannot pray here in public square, or you cannot do this, you cannot read your Bible, then you know that they are trampling upon your religious liberties. And that's when we can rebel. And it says there right in the book of Acts where Peter, John, and the other apostles resisted the authority because they were stopping them from what? Preaching the gospel of Christ. They wanted to stop calling Jesus' name. So then, as Christians in a nation, if we profess and if we claim and brag and say, Liberia is a Christian nation, okay, this is what the Bible is saying. This is God's word, that we should learn how to put our hands around those leaders. Yes, you may say, but Brother Red, what if they are so corrupt here and there? Of course, we are all sinners saved by grace, and this is not to defend anybody. However, that's why you have the power of the vote. You have the power of the vote. You go in that booth to vote for people of character and integrity, people who will bring about real change in the lives of people. That is providing basic things like electricity, water, jobs, and claim a role or construction of roads and for people to move around, all those things. So we have the power to vote. We have a democratic system. But again, the institution is set up by government to what? But it's set up by God Himself. So here, there are rulers who are there not to terrorize people, but they are there to prevent evil. Look here. The question is, do you want to be unafraid of the authority? Then do what is good, and you will have praise from the sin. But look at verse 4. For he is God's minister to you for good, but if you do evil, be afraid. For he does not bear the sword in vain, for he is God's minister, an avenger to execute wrath on him who practices evil. So now you may ask a question. You want to tell me those are in authority? The way I look at them, God says they are the ministers, God's ministers. Of course, God used them as a vessel or instrument to manifest order. Can you imagine if there were no policeman and no military or the army? You know what's going to happen to the community? People are going to ransack, even though there's an increase of crime in our country right now. But let us understand that the first thing first, in order for us to have great leadership, it starts with you. Do you respect your parents? Do you love your parents? Are you a good husband? Do you respect your wife? Do you love your wife? And do you love your community? What are some of the things you're doing in your community? That's where leadership starts from. But sometimes we jump to the head instead of looking around us. But if you're a Christian listening to our voices here, Reverend Swadede and I, look at Romans chapter 13. Let us have a whole new attitude of how we can approach all of the big problems that we have in our country. We shouldn't approach it just only by criticism, but we should approach it by what I can do. What kind of a heart do I have? And what kind of a talent or ability do I have or capacity do I have to contribute to my country? Reverend Dede?
Certainly, brother, certainly. This is a good segue to take it home because all of us are God's creation, God's children, and the government is instituted by God on God's behalf. I mean, you already took care of that, you're taking care of that, and I don't want to go back on that. But the flip side is God also calls on government for good governance, and you strictly deal with that home as well. Because the government, you don't expect people to respect you if you don't respect their rights. That's just a giving. It's just a giving. And we got to face that reality. If you start muscling people's right, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, journalism can't work properly. I'm a former journalist. You are a former journalist. I don't want to say former. Yeah, we are former. Okay, I think that former. But my mind is still journalistic. So if the government cracks down on the rights of the citizenry to free speech, and then cracks down on the media to report and inform the people, well, that's the role of the media. Whether you like it or not, government, the role of the media is to inform, entertain, and teach the people and let people understand what's going on in society. It is the right of the media to do that. So if the media does that, there'll be problems sometimes, there'll be errors along the way. They are human beings like you, government. So you don't start cracking down on them because they make mistakes. Okay, some mistakes are terrible, we understand that, but the government role is to make sure the laws are implemented in ways that will bring out the good in the society, not to stop for people's right, not to jail people unnecessarily when you shouldn't be doing that, not to curtail people's rights in court. The court is corrupted, polluted. I'm not saying that the Supreme Court is that. I'm just saying, talking aloud. I have no clues, nothing to prove that. I'm just saying, in general, the court should be credible. The leadership in government should be credible. The judiciary should be credible. The law enforcement should be credible so that people feel safe and protected. Then you get the best of the people. That's what it is. But if you curtail their rights, they'll protest. And when they protest, it's their right to protest. Protect the protester because that's a right. That's the only way to call their attention to government. Before I close, Alex, it's been months now. This brother, I think, I know Pompon, somebody, I've forgotten his name, he had to put himself on flame because, according to him, his voice was discarded. So he had to take that extreme measure, which I would not do, honestly. I would not do that. I was in the press here. I did put myself on flame because government shut down institutions. We had to speak to the court and protest. But I would not put myself on flame. But to the extreme, that something must have prepared him to do that. Government should not lead her people to an extreme where they will destroy their own selves by putting themselves on fire. So these are things that we have to look at our people that love our country. We love our country. We in America. Anything I shared this with you personally. I listened to the national anthem today before the program, and I became emotional. The Liberian national anthem. I became emotional. I miss home. I love home. So even here, the national anthem means a lot to me. Even the flag. As I'm talking now, I'm getting emotional again because why? This is my country. This is my nation. This is my people where I belong and where I think we should live together in harmony, not destroy each other. Government and the citizenry will have a role to play. And that role we must play in the honor and the glory and honor of God. Thank you, brother.
Exactly. And it is each and every one of us role to play. Please share this video with your friends, your relatives, your family members, or anybody. It is all about country Liberia, and it's a weekend. And for all of the Liberian communities within the United States, we'd like to say Happy Independence Day. I know you have various festivities going on from Ohio to New York to Minnesota to Rhode Island. I talk about the populated Liberian communities.
Be careful, be careful.
Yes, Maryland, Delaware, Philadelphia, and all the other places. Fill in the blank. We'd like to say Happy Independence Day, and as we celebrate this day, we just want to reflect to respect our countrymen and women, and just be happy that we seeing another birth or day, may I say, for our country, Liberia, 174th. That's a lot of years, and we are hoping that we will see our country doing the best for its citizenry as a whole. Okay, and this is how we leave you here today on Gracious Hope Live Podcast. Okay, so we thank you so much. This is KMTV. We are everywhere. And thanks to all of the management and staff, Randall, and the rest of the other people for allowing us to use this platform. And we'll be back here next Saturday. Tomorrow is Sunday. We'll be here at 3 p.m. Eastern, that is Central Time. I will be here, and Reverend Dede will be here 5 p.m. Eastern Time. I will be here 3 p.m. And we will be bringing you messages from the Word of God. But for our podcast, we'll be back next Saturday. And we are here every Saturday. Let us say thank you so much. And may you have a happy Independence Day. Don't forget to share our link. Thank you.